Hello, one and all, and welcome back to another episode of. Now I have to start over because I blew my own intro.
Take as many takes as you need.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to leave this in because I talked to Vic yesterday, and they messed up during the intro and made me retake it, which I left in. All right.
So now you have to keep it in.
Yes. No. It won't be fair. Vic will be very angry with me. Hello, one and all, and welcome back to another thrilling episode of Off the Dome. I'm your humble interviewer, Jordan Brown, and with me for the very first time is our dynamic director. Say hi, dynamic director.
Hello. That was a very impressive intro, actually.
Thank you. It's modeled after Dimension 20, if you are not a fan. Not modeled after. It's fully stolen from. Tamar, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to talk to you. I have fallen so deeply in love with very important people. It is so silly in just it's just the best way too. My first question for you: ADC Young Guns, new exposure by Vogue, Red X and Bottega Veneta, Communication Arts, and PDN Photo Annuals, and now you're working with clowns. How did this? What happened?
I woke up one day and I was like, fashion. I mean, the fashion industry and the music industry, it's great, but this comedy stuff I think is a little bit more my speed. I still do that stuff, like I've been doing directing and photography for quite a long time. And I just need to mix things up. I mentioned this to Sam, and this is absolutely true. I had more fun on set on VIP than I have in 20 years of being on set. Like, they really, not to kind of like make their ego too big or anything, but it should be, because honestly, like they really, everything that the fans think about like them is true. They really run a fun set. So it was awesome to do.
I'm so happy to hear that. As a fan, I know you don't have any idea who I am, and that's super fair.
I've been enjoying talking to you on Instagram, so that's
yeah.
I will say that the VIP or the Dropout fan, College Humor fans, that's all very new to me. I never even, the last time I saw College Humor before this that was quite a while ago. And I used to be a very, very big fan of College Humor. And now I'm a new fan, of all things Dropout. Even last night, I couldn't go to sleep and I was binging on Dirty Laundry. So I am definitely a new fan as well. But it's all very new to me. So it's all new content, which is great. Yeah. We needed new content to watch.
Yes. Yeah. I'm very jealous of you to get to experience those wild things for the first time. I've made a weird niche for myself as the Dropout reporter of TikTok. And I was thinking about it this morning, and I was like, I don't know how it exactly happened, but it did, and so I just am running with it until someone takes it away from me.
Great job. So
thank you. Yeah. So I know you said you fan of, like, it's also one of the things that I love about College Humor, like, because I also sort of in the same boat rediscovered it in like 2020, 2021, right around there. And it feels like it grew up with me as well. Like, it's very different from the College Humor days Dropout is. So, but having come to it recently, how did you come then to VIP? What was that process like?
Yeah, I met Paul through a mutual friend, this woman, Andrea, who has also done stuff with them. And we just met and we kind of, we clicked, and I told him that I was very interested in kind of pivoting a little bit. I had done some stuff with, I don't know if you're familiar with Super Deluxe, that doesn't exist anymore, but it was an old comedy streaming site about, I think they closed their doors about 8 years ago or so, maybe 7 years ago. I could be totally wrong, but I was kind of dabbling in comedy with them, and then they had to end things, and or they had to end their entire ship and operations. So I kind of just, you kind of, as a director, you kind of go where the work is. And for me, I've just been very fortunate in doing commercials, and I've been very busy doing commercials, but something's always kind of been missing from a creative standpoint. So when I met Paul, I received this opportunity, and I was, obviously very happy to take it. But then Paul introduced me to Sam and Kyle and David, and then the rest was history, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, amazing. So it's always it's one of those things that it feels like once you're in the Dropout family, you're in the Dropout family. And I also love that, like, it feels like a family, but not that like exploitative way where it's like, we're a family, so work without pay today, like that kind of thing that companies tend to do. But yeah, it always does. Like, it always does feel like having these interviews of like, okay, well, how did you come to Dropout? I've talked to a lot of people in production, specifically at Dimension 20, and a lot of them are like, yeah, I knew this person who was working and they brought me on and they loved me. And so now I'm like full-time building like minis for them and stuff. So it's super, super fun. I know you originally wanted to be a scientist.
When I was 4, let's be
yeah, fair. What would 4-year-old Tamar think of very important people if she was allowed to watch? I assume she would not be.
You know what? She might have been. My parents were very out there. Yeah, I think I would have loved it. Like, I grew up on Pee-wee's Playhouse, and it still is. I'm even though I know, showing content to toddlers is controversial, I've been showing Pee-wee to my daughter, and she's a super fan of it. So I've always been a fan of this kind of like very, I would say, kind of out of the box, kind of sensibility. So I think 4-year-old Tamar probably wouldn't understand 90% of, maybe 99% of the jokes, but I think she would have appreciated the, the sentiment and the visuals and kind of like how out there it is. Definitely the characters.
Yeah. Man, can I tell you how jealous I am that your toddler likes Pee-wee? Mine likes Cocomelon and Baby John and Pink Fong. It's the worst thing in the world.
Mine would if she had ever seen it, but I'm keeping her in this like box as of I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, Pee-wee, Sesame Street. I mean, she does like Miss Rachel, which I have to say, like, have you seen Miss Rachel?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. I have every single one of those songs memorized, and I just like, I've been catching myself. Actually, last night, I was telling you before we started recording, I couldn't, or no, maybe it was when we were recording. I don't know. I don't sleep anymore, but I couldn't fall asleep. And I was just kind of like listening to, do you know the song At the Zoo that Miss Rachel's husband sings?
Yes. Yep.
I was just playing that on loop in my head, and I finally fell asleep, which was great.
Yeah. My son has just started dipping his toe into Bluey, and oh man, we're pushing so hard to be like, no, watch a show that we would enjoy, please, please. Yeah. Oh man, yeah. One of the things that I love about very important people, like I mentioned, I'm also about to say, I don't know if I said this to you before we started recording or while we were recording, because it's also, everything is a blur to me. But I talked to Vic. Yeah,
we're in the same toddler.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I also saw someone sent me a thing today that like whoever named toddlers is perfect because they really be toddling, and I was like, yeah, that is correct. I've talked to Vic twice now. I talked to Vic. Vic and I are best friends.
Jealous.
Apparently, yes. It's well, I will say, Vic said of you that you were a perfect pair, direct quote, and that you had the exact same sense of humor.
We absolutely do. Vic has become one of my like biggest creative heroes during all of this, and I'm very fortunate that they have also, take a liking to me. So it's great. Like I
Yeah.
could not have been paired with a more perfect person for this.
They're so delightful and wonderful, and every time they talk to me, like I emailed them yesterday, and I was like, "Look, you're a really good actor, so I don't know if we're actually friends or not, but in case." And then we had a conversation about us actually being friends,
No, we are.
because
We're
they're
all
so talented.
friends
It's
after
like,
this. For
yeah.
sure.
I also asked Vic. I was like, "Give me something," because like I'm talking to Tamar tomorrow, which
Yeah.
is a tough one to say, but I was like,
Times quickly.
yeah, I was like, but can you give me something that's going to make me sound smart? And they were like, say something about math. And I was like, Vic, that's not helpful.
You could literally say anything about math. You could give me like any sort of multiplication problem that has more than like one digit, and
yeah.
I would be blown away. So
Before, I wanted to say before this, but like this is not like a real job. This is just fun. I taught journalism classes. I don't know math. Like I can't do.
yeah.
So then their recommendation was talk about the history of journalism and that you would know it. And I was like, I also don't know the history of journalism.
I can't tell if Vic's trolling me or you, but one of us for sure.
Yeah. But one of the things, speaking of Vic, one of the things that I've talked to them about is how important the backstory for the character Vic was, not only to like inform how they acted on set, but like also like an episode like Nana, how important it was to be like, why am I doing this? Why do I care? Why did I not just stop this the moment that she was mean to me?
Exactly.
And I know you played a huge part in like helping develop that backstory. Can you talk to me about like kind of the process that you went through?
Yeah, it's been it was such an interesting process for me to do this, because I come from a narrative and commercial and scripted background. I do not come from an improv background. And so it was very interesting to me. And, I was very like, I'm sure you saw on my bio or whatever, I've been directing for a very long time, for about 20 years. And I was very insecure coming into this because I've never directed improv before. So I think, Vic made me everyone made me very comfortable. And just like a part of the team from, right away.
Could I actually get a clean cut of you saying Vic made me very uncomfortable so that I can
exactly.
just kidding.
Very uncomfortable. No, like I have to say, Vic, like we met way before filming, and like we I don't want this to be like the gushing over, like I am Vic's number one fan personally and professionally. So we'll just kind of cover that. But no, I've been doing this for a long time, but I have never done improv. And so I think that was actually maybe a benefit to the show. I don't know. But I was certainly surrounded by, people that are improv gurus, and so I kind of leaned on them for like the like when to cut, and because for me it's really just about getting the right line, or if someone has the wrong angle or whatever. So we definitely had a great balance. That all being said, when I came into this, it was very important to me. Like I knew that every episode would be about somewhere probably between 15 and 30 minutes. That's a very long time for an interview, and like even with the cutaways, even with the green screens, you do need a beginning, middle, and end, like to make it kind of interesting. And to make it even more interesting, having some sort of like backstory and figuring out, who is this character? And Vic comes from not just an improv background as well, but obviously Vic is also an actor in their own right. And so they kind of understood the importance as well. That all being said, we from the very, very beginning, when we were kind of shaping their character, I had an idea and Vic had an idea, and I guess it just kind of like came together in a very great way that Vic would play a very heightened version of themselves. And that was just something like, after I had seen their work on Dropout, as well as, I looked them up and looked at some of their outside work. I kind of just had like that instinct about them that, that could be kind of cool. They were super on board. I think they had that idea as well. And so we just kind of like started shaping this backstory. And, I remember like the first time Vic, I think it was even in the first episode we shot, which was Oscar and Giovanni's episode. I think Vic, yeah.
Every time you say, anytime you're going to mention an episode that hasn't aired yet, I'm so excited for every single one of them.
Yeah, that's a really, really fun one. So when we were doing that first episode, which was the first one we shot, I think Vic mentioned, this might be a little bit of a spoiler actually. So I'm not going to say what I'm going to say because it does, does happen on the episode. But Vic mentions things, and then after the episode, after we film, we kind of like have this little, meeting. And we talk about, oh, like you mentioned that, like, what if that ends up being kind of like a through line to the whole, to kind of like your whole story. So the more we filmed, the richer their character got. But a lot of decisions were talked about before we even started filming, which was awesome for me.
Yeah. It's having like the through line of, I talked about with Vic yesterday about Bianca, their stepdaughter. Exactly. Having those through lines, and because I also I saw it. I think Vic and I talked about it, that like people online were like, "Boy, it like coming up with that like backstory like in the moment really helped like land." And Vic was like, "We worked so hard on it.
We worked really hard on that. There were a lot of things that it was such a balance. There was nothing was scripted, obviously. All of the dialogue and the guests, all of that was on the spot. But Vic's backstory really was talked about and kind of molded.
Yeah, which I mean feels so important and like obviously paid off really well in the show, because you get those moments of like I said, like, why on earth would you continue the Nana interview after the first body slam? But
yeah, and also just to be clear on that, I was reading some of like the Discord conversations as well, and Vic, Vic and Lisa, and I wrote this on Discord as well, but like Vic and Lisa have worked together a lot. They're very comfortable together, and Vic made an equal amount of decisions that Lisa did, during the filming of that episode. So I just wanted to be very clear, if Vic hasn't already, that,
Vic said the only thing that would have like made them uncomfortable with Lisa is if they had to spend like a year in close proximity. Like that's how close they are. Like everything else was fair game. And like even to the point of like chugging their coffee, a martini mixture. Vic was like,
at that point, but yes.
Vic was like, I so badly wanted to do it, and I was so happy that Lisa like pulled the countdown to give me a reason to do it.
They just were really, I mean, I've said this before, like it was my favorite episode, and even filming, like Vic, it was not one of the last episodes we filmed, I don't think. It's all kind of a blur.
I hear last in a day though.
It was
which would make sense for the energy.
Was it less? It might have been less than a day. Again.
Also, Vic could be wrong.
It might,
entirely possible.
yeah. The only thing I know was Zach was last. Zach was the last one we filmed out of all of them, and Oscar was the first, and everything in the middle, I have no
It's
idea.
just a fever dream. Yeah.
It's all a fever dream. But, and I don't even know where it was going with that, except to say that that Vic and Lisa have this relationship with each other on and off screen that was just perfect for this. It was really just perfect.
Yeah. We talked about Vic's chugging that drink. Do you want to talk about Vic's coffee, the way they like their coffee? Do you know? Because it's the most unhinged thing I've ever heard in my life.
You know, I don't make their coffee, but I would say it was one of my top priorities to make sure Vic had their coffee, a lot of coffee. And they would kill me for saying this, but we went out for dinner, for a wrap dinner, and it was like 8 p.m. or something like that. And we're all ordering. It was me and like, you know, some of the producers and Vic. And it was Vic, it was like 8 p.m. and Vic orders a coffee, and a very specific coffee. I don't remember how they ordered it, but I remember it being very specific. And we were all just kind of like, we're like, wow, are you going to be up the entire night? And they're like, nope. So yes, the coffee is a thing. I would love to know how they make their coffee, because.
Oh, do you want to know? Because it's.
Please tell me.
Okay. They like their coffee room temperature, wild to start.
Okay. So it's simple. Okay.
But because they want to drink it all day long, they make half water, half coffee in their mugs.
Yes.
Which
I
is
know that.
Yeah.
Yes. That is
wild.
It is wild. No, that's actually really great to know, because moving forward, I am never showing up to a Vic engagement without watered down
coffee. They'll be so happy to see it, and it doesn't have to be good. They specifically they drink Folgers because they drink so much of it.
So much that just makes me love them more.
Yep, it was my face betrayed me as they were telling me how they like their coffee. I tried to play it straight that it wasn't the wildest thing I've ever heard.
You know what? It's all coming together. It actually makes sense now why they could even stomach what was in that mug when Lisa did the countdown. That makes it all it's all coming together.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I know. We talked about like you've said Nano is your favorite episode. Obviously, my favorite episode so far. I feel like Tommy Shrigley is going to replace it, only because Zach is the most upsetting thing I've ever seen. In every picture, he looks differently upsetting, which is a hard task to accomplish.
He was my favorite costume, and I would say he's definitely up there. Now that you mention it, I do feel like Zach's episode was up there as well. That type of sense of humor, very physical and very kind of, unhinged, I would say, is that tends to be my favorite. But, I love all of them. It's like, how do you pick your favorite, baby? Like, I love them all in their own unique ways.
Yeah, I mean, it started so strong with Princess Emily, just like out the gate. I mean, I know that wasn't the first episode you shot, but like the decision to like start with a not full prosthetics, a very like certainly not calm episode, but comparatively, I guess, calm episode. Like really like kind of ease people into, and here comes like Denzel. Much wilder energy, and then here comes Nana, as wild as it can get.
Totally.
I've reached out to the makeup team and made contact with at least one of them, I think, to be like, hey, I want to talk to you as well, because goodness, like, what an incredible accomplishment. I mean, like, Emmy winning now, I think, at this point.
I don't know if they won an Emmy or not, but they certainly deserve to win an Emmy. They're, all of them we were so lucky to have them. They were just incredible. And Alex, as the department head, has become one of my favorite people as well.
I think it's Alex who replied to me, because much like you, I just got into their like Instagram DMs and was like, "Hi, you don't know who I am, but
yeah, no, Alex
but
is great, really, really incredible, and her whole team.
Yeah, that was I was like, man, I want to hold off to Tommy Shrigley because that feels like the makeup episode I want to talk about the most, and I'm terrified that's the finale because I don't know the order of release, so I'm just like, I want to talk to him now too. So I'm stuck in a very weird limbo.
Yeah. Well, Tommy's episode, we can talk about it as well later on, but I probably don't want to give anything away just yet.
Yeah. The only thing I know is that Vic was like, it was the only episode that I broke in, like fully, like we had to stop shooting because I couldn't keep it together. And I was like, I can't wait. And I was like, and I mentioned the protein powder because that's in the trailer. And they're like, it wasn't that. And I was like, incredible. I can't wait.
Yeah, that was, I will say this, which is that was the last episode we shot. And I, before we shot it, I went up to Zach and Vic and I said, you guys, like, this is the last episode, which means that we don't need the stage anymore after this.
That's good to know. Yeah. Yeah.
So go completely apeshit. And he did. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. You can't give Zach that kind of direction and not expect. Yeah, I was curious. Speaking of the makeup, though, like, how much are you involved in that process? How much is that just you being like, I trust you're about to make magic?
No, just joking. I do. Luckily, I do very much trust this team, but I do also. I'm a very type A, very controlling person, so I was very fortunate that I didn't know Alex before this. She had worked with David and College Humor before. And when I met her, I was like, like normally I do, tend to kind of like bring my own team or like, I have people that I've been working with, but David presented Alex. And first I looked up her work and I was like, yes, immediately. And then I met her and I was like, even more yes, because she, when you meet someone that clicks with your kind of like creative sensibility, but then also they're just really pleasant people, that's just kismet and it's just magic, especially like there's so many people that do, what I do and what everyone else does, that it's really cool to meet like your creative family. So with Alex and with wardrobe and with Vic and kind of with everything, we were extremely collaborative. I think with all of my shoots, that just kind of goes without saying with all of my shoots. Like I'm extremely involved in I think especially because I started as a photographer, like I'm very, very, very visual. And so it's very important to me that everything is cohesive and everything is kind of like part of the same universe, right? Like I want everything to feel like it's in this very important people parallel universe. And that is the same with the characters. So long-winded way of saying yes, I was very involved with Alex.
That's great. I know. Like I really love that you're involved with the behind the scenes. Devastated that they're like 3 minutes long. I need hours on every episode. I know that's a Sam decision, but it's also one of the things that like started this weird little interview series for me, was because like Dimension 20 has such incredible production work as well, that I was like, I want more, so much more. And so like getting to dive into like the nitty gritty of like, what's it like sitting at Video Village, like, well, like Vic is being like spanked on set by her nana, and like how are you not like are you attempting to just like keep your laughs into yourself? Like, are you so conscious of the sound, or do you just like let it go because it's impossible at that point?
I am conscious of the sound for sure. I don't want to make amazing sound guy, TJ. I don't want to make his life miserable in post. So yes, the entire time I'm like, I start sitting and I'm just kind of watching and I'm like, okay, interesting. And me, David, Paul and Stephanie, who was kind of our like improv consultant, we're all talking to each other over a private Slack channel. And we're kind of like figuring out, like we're pitching each other and kind of like acting basically as story producers while it's going on and kind of figuring out like, oh, they said this, maybe we can bring that back later on in the episode, or like, let's pitch this during a cut or whatever. So in general, I tried to kind of stay stationed there and look at the monitor. And then, it's a lot to do, like call cut or, whatever it is, make sure that makeup's okay, everything. During Lisa's episode, and also some of the other episodes, Brennan is a good example of when I was just like, do you know what? I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to enjoy the ride. And I was sitting there and I'm like, okay, like I'm not calling cut. And then I had to just cover my mouth to I literally had to physically stifle my laughter. And then I'm just like standing up and I was just like, I'm just pacing because it's so funny. So yes, it was very difficult to keep it together, but you can also hear us, you can hear us breaking a lot. You can, by the end of the season, you'll be very familiar with the sound of my laugh, because I couldn't hold it together after that.
I mean, entirely fair. Like, it's incredible. I assume Sam wasn't around for filming.
He was a little bit. Yeah. I don't remember
because I know he's in the back of the makeup because I can hear him laughing then because he has a very loud, distinct laugh. And I was like, as if I'm not hearing him on set, then he must not have been on set because he does not keep it together.
Those days that you can hear him in the makeup room were the same days that he was also on set. I don't remember what days those were, but if you listen close enough in some of the episodes, you will definitely hear his laughter.
It's so fun.
I do know he was there for Brennan's. I know that very distinctly. So yeah.
He was there for Iffy. He was there for Iffy as well because I could hear him laughing when Iffy was making jokes in the mirror. You
can also, if you replay it, you'll definitely hear him during the interview. Yeah, it's very distinct.
Good. Yeah, because I messaged. That was an episode I got to see early, which was very fun. Because I had an interview with Vic coming up, our first time we talked, and I'd hoped to get like 3 episodes under my belt before we talked, but I was able to get send me the Denzel episode early so I could watch that, and so I messaged Sam to be like, "Hey, I've seen the episode. Is that you laughing, like cackling with laughter?" And he's like, "Yeah, of course it is." So
it really is, yeah. Which just made it more fun, I think that's the benefit of these, and not that you asked me this question, but it has been a balance. Because we can do some of this in post, we can take out if someone's laughing hysterically in the background, as long as it's not overlapping someone's line, we can dial it down a little bit. It's a little nuanced. So as long as you're not laughing over Vic or the guest talking, you can kind of tone it down or cut it out. So it definitely was something that we tried to take out, as much as possible, but a lot of times it was impossible to take out because we were all laughing so hard. I mean, there's I'm sure this, but for the people watching your videos, there's probably, you could count the credits. I'm assuming there were about 50 people on set. How do you?
Yeah.
And these are very funny people. How do you just not laugh?
One of the joys I think of every Dropout show is when you hear the crew laughing, because obviously the crew is around brilliant comedians all the time. So you know when you got the crew laughing that like it was something special that you saw. So like it is always very fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned like being on a Slack channel, coordinating those kinds of things. Is that also then where you're coordinating like, all right, Vic just called for a book. Someone find anything that looks like a book.
Yeah. So I speak about this, I feel like in one of the last looks, I don't know, again, it's all blending together. But so basically what we did was we thought about the characters. We also thought about props that might, depending on the direction the actors took the characters, that it might fit. And in addition, we also had 2 tables of generic props that just, we could maybe just finagle something together. So basically, before the interview would start, we kept the props right off stage, so it was very easy. So right before the interview would start, me, Paul, and David, we would kind of go behind and like look at the table of props, and we would say, okay, and I would kind of present the props that we were thinking for the specific character. So for example, Denzel, we actually had a staff with a dildo on top, like an alien dildo.
Of course. Yeah.
My Amazon history. Looking
what a fun receipt to turn in for reimbursement.
For an alien dildo was, let's just say that like I was
Your ads have been weird for a while.
Ads have been weird, yes. So, for example, we had that staff. We had our prop maker. I had bought the dildo. We had a staff made, and we had this dildo on a staff. And in our head, we thought this is a alien with chest hair. We know if he, what if he is normally his attitude, kind of like
you know where Iffy's going with this.
So in our heads we were like, okay, like how do we, like maybe he's going to turn this into kind of like a seductive alien. And even our character, when we're kind of doing pre-pro on the deck, I think his character description was seductive alien with chest hair. That was how we designed the character. So we had the staff, we had a couple other kind of things for him, but how he took that interview was actually totally different in a really good way and in a really surprising way for us. So we didn't even take out that my alien dildo wasn't even so that all being said, we, sometimes the props worked, sometimes they didn't. For Nana's episode, that book that Nana's reading from, that is actually a book of nails.
Acrylic nails, yeah,
exactly. So what we thought was, hey, like Nana has all these like, I don't know if you see her nails at all in the episode, but they were...
She pulls one off and they eat it. So yeah,
exactly. But they were amazing. And so in our head, we were like, Nana clearly Lisa Gilroy's character cares about her nails. So maybe there will be a moment where we can use this nail book. Then Vic says, the line about like, I heard you wrote a book. And that's when I kind of quickly, this is what happened a lot, where we had our amazing PA Cody, who appears on the screen a lot. I'm sure you noticed him.
Yeah, he's not allowed to speak.
He was incredible, and like I'm just so happy how game he was for everything. So basically, what would happen was I would like run over to him, whisper like, grab a book. And he would then, and, if there was something next to him, which there was, he had this nail book on file. I was like, just grab that. And so he would grab that, and then he would kind of quickly bring it on stage. Very long-winded answer to your question, but
exactly what I wanted.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Great.
and like drop the alien dildo staff on Instagram. Like the people want to see it. Yeah, I
don't know if it exists anymore, but I just was like, oh my God, not that I was bummed that they didn't use it, but like my Amazon history is so messed up now. It's like, I can't, like, I used to buy diapers on it, and now I'm just getting like the weirdest shit advertised.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, Vic has said that like it feels like magic because they'll just say something and then all of a sudden Cody is there with that thing. So like kudos to like having a prop table like that's it. It's exactly what I wanted. I'm glad it was long-winded.
Great. Yeah, I thought like that, there are a lot of things about the props and kind of like how we were envisioning the characters versus how the characters came to fruition that are it was very interesting to me to see. So I'm assuming it'll be interesting to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I sort of, I don't know about sort of in that vein, but like, coming up with that like story and aesthetic that you like, because I talked to Vic about this, that like you are so strong with like story and aesthetic specifically. And you mentioned like pitching like, okay, like here's a narrative we can build out of this improvised thing that's happening in front of us. Does a lot of that come together in the editing room? I'm assuming you're also very hands-on there as well, because it would be wild if you weren't.
Yeah, I already know this is going to be another long-winded answer. So let me just press.
I'm ready.
Okay, so how this happened was, so we had an idea of how we wanted to structure the filming of this. This is a type of format that even Dropout wasn't familiar with because the last time they did it was in 2012 with Josh's Hello, My Name Is. Mm-hmm. So how we kind of, Paul and David and I had kind of, discussed how this was going to work because we were shooting 3 episodes a day. It's not like we had, 8 hours to kind of let them see what was going to happen and then just, figure it out. So what we kind of came up with, and we ended up doing kind of a version of this, is we gave so after the actor did the reveal in the other room, and they would come on set and Vic would be like, oh my God, you look crazy, blah, 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 blah. After that, then, or, not crazy, you look whatever, amazing, wild, whatever. So after Vic, would kind of, they would talk for a second in the chairs. Then we started rolling pretty much right away. And I wanted to give them, a decent amount of time to kind of like workshop and feel out where they're, because, we say this, but it truly is made up on the spot. Like if he had 10 minutes in front of the mirror to come up with his character, same as Lisa, same as Anna, same as everyone else. So they don't know, and we don't know if this character is really going to work and if, how much of a backstory they can even create. So we gave them about 10 minutes of just kind of like free for all, just kind of like, workshopping, and the workshopping was the interview. Like it really was. But after about 10 minutes, we would think, okay, so that's when I would call cut after about 10 minutes. And so we would generally, I think pretty much all the time, actually, I want to say 100% of the time, their characters that they had come up with in front of the mirror is what we used for the rest of the interview, which was great for us. They never was, So like if he was like, kind of workshopping this thing in front of the mirror, it's not like after 10 minutes he was like, whoa, wait, I want to take this a whole nother direction. So we were very lucky in that like what they kind of chose in front of the mirrors is what they ended up doing the rest of the interview. That being said, it was very important to me to have a beginning, middle, and end. So, and to Vic, obviously. And this also just, made their character so much richer as well. So after that 10 minutes, I would call cut. I would go on to, go say it's Iffy, go over to Iffy and Vic. And I would say, okay, so like in this first 10 minutes, and this is why we were all slacking with each other, because it's very difficult, I'm sure, for them to remember like, oh, I made this up, like we needed to keep track. And we also had a script supervisor as well, who was fantastic. So I would talk, and the script supervisor as well would come up and be like, well, Vic mentioned this. And I would be like, okay, great. So you guys were talking about, this, for example, a technology that actually is a sweater, right? So like, what if that's a through line, right? Like, what if like, that's not just one joke? What if that turns into like your whole character? And like, how can we come up with like a beginning, middle, and ends? And how does Vic's point of view change on this person as well, or this character or alien or whatever it is? So it was a lot to think about. And luckily, we had, it was like Vic and the guest, and then, the producers, and like, we all kind of like were able to workshop in a very, very, very short amount of time. Like we had 30 seconds, when I called cut to like kind of come up with all of this. And Vic would pitch things and the guest would pitch things. And like, it really was just kind of like magic, really. Like it was just a perfect way to do it. So, again, like for 15 minutes, it would be very difficult to keep that engaging. Like you really, even if it's the funniest thing you've ever seen, you still need some sort of story, just something to kind of like ground you and be like, okay, like this is Vic's point of view in the beginning. This is Vic's point of view at the end. This is the guest point of view in the beginning. This is the guest point of view at the end. And that's how, that's how I write scripts. It's like act 1, act 2, and act 3. And so that's kind of not that we like, we never were like didactic about it, but if after like 45 minutes of filming and it didn't seem like, this was going to resolve, or that like Vic's point of view, it was going to shift, or that, Iffy's point of view was going to shift or whatever. I'm just saying this as an example. I don't even remember how that filming went, but, Iffy's point of view, was kind of like staying the same, then I would call cut again and we would go in and be like, okay, like clearly you're pissed that he's staying in your guest house, right? Like that's not fun. It's, clearly you caught it on camera. So because you've been pissed about it for a good chunk of the episode, what if at the end, like, maybe you're like, you guys become friends at the end or whatever it was, and this was like, Vic came up with, a lot of this. I kind of was just there to really just bounce off ideas. David and Paul and Steph and the script supervisor were all there. So like, it was really, like the bulk of this was Vic and the guest kind of, definitely coming up with their characters. But we were just there to kind of, just kind of help, I guess, turn it into like a cohesive story, really.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. And also, like, obviously, clearly shows in those episodes of, like, there is a plot that's going through. And as I've talked to Vic, there's the plot that then, like, kind of runs Vic's character, like,
exactly,
runs the whole season.
Yeah, there's a season through line, which is kind of like the universe through line. But then there's also a through line with, how Vic and this character how they think about each other and how does that change, and really thinking of it as like a instead of a sketch, I mean a sketch as well, but more of just kind of like acts 1, act 2, and act 3. Same with the edit. Like the editor that I've been working with on this, Eve, who has done a lot of dropout stuff, I could not be more like thankful that she's on this with me. Just as with Vic, kind of me and Eve are just like, we just share the same sensibility. And so with Vic, me and them were like, we were very, just like our waves were just the same during filming, just like that. Eve and I were we're still editing. We haven't even, I don't even think we're halfway through the edit right now, but we just have this thing. Like, it's just awesome. I mean, it's just, as Vic said, magical. So with Eve, I feel very lucky as well. And there is, I would say we have about somewhere between an hour and 2 hours of footage. No, actually more if you think about the green screen and makeup. I would say it's probably about, if I were to guess, I would say it's probably about 3 hours of footage total that we have to shape into, a tight 15-30 minutes. So the editing is very important, and Eve is killing it. She's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, from Vic, they had said that like the Nana episode could have been, they think that there were basically no cuts, that it was basically like just them, like they had that one, no need.
That was one that was, I think, the only one that I don't think I called cut once, actually. We didn't even need that 10 minutes to workshop. It was like, I might have called cut just to be like, do you guys know where this is going? Because I have full trust in you and I'm hoping you know where it's going. They're like, yeah, don't worry, we got this. And I was like, okay. So that was really, I think also, when I say it's my favorite episode, probably like they made my job so easy that day, because I just got to sit back and be an audience member,
watch two masters of improv just absolutely crush it. Understandable. Oh man, there's also like it's the absolute part of you absolute son of a bitch, you won't die, that like the like oxygen left my body and I was like, I had to pause it because I was having a coughing fit. I was laughing so hard at it. And not to undercut Lisa's obviously brilliant performance as well, because very funny moments from Lisa, but boy, that one specific moment really got me. Oh man.
Vic's, I've said it a million times, I'll say it a million times more, like Vic, I think what's so great about this show is that, like, if you didn't like Elisa, if that's not your type of, humor or whatever, you can just look at another one and probably get a whole nother vibe from that. But Vic does such a good job of, Vic, I'm sure they've talked to you about this, like some of these people they've worked with and some of them they haven't, and so most of them they have, but I would say there was maybe a couple that they hadn't during the 12 episodes of filming. But Vic always did such a good job of like really matching their energy and kind of like coming up with like their own relationship with these people. It was I mean, Vic is truly like, I mean, they carry this show. They're incredible. Like, there was no one else that I would rather have as the host. Like, I mean, truly, I could not think of a better person for this job.
It's one of those joys of like, as someone who's very, very deep in the fan community, like I get to hear a lot from fans and things as well, because my life is very weird anyway, but like when Vic shows up on like Make Some Noise or Game Changer or whatever, obviously like when VIP got announced, like people are so excited, like because they're like, Vic is just like like such a favorite of like fans.
And for
And
good reason, like,
yeah,
I'm a fan. They're so quick and they have such a specific point of view and just so like such a generous performer as well. Like, I think that's something that's really important, as a host. It's like you can't be as a host, it really is this kind of, they can speak better about this than I can, but like it really is this kind of game of chess, and you don't want to overpower the guest. And so they were so generous with like their, improv, and like they were so but still like staying true to their character. It was really remarkable to watch, really.
yeah, yeah. Look, it's nothing but love on this end for Vic as well. So look, the fact that I get to be Vic's friend in real life is a wild thing, and I'm very grateful for it. We are coming up to the hour. Tamar, if people want to see more from you, where can they find you on the internet to see those things?
Yeah,
Or a new project that you want to plug, whatever you've got going on.
yeah. Well, generally I try to keep my life updated on Instagram, which is just Tamar Levine. And then I try to update my website. That happens sometimes and it happens, sometimes less. But yeah, I'm pretty accessible. If anyone wants to check out my Instagram, I would say that's probably the best way to do it, or website.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, incredible. Thank you so much. This was absolutely delightful. I never get tired of talking about these. My undergrad was in film, so like I have like
Oh,
a
amazing.
baseline of knowledge that's like kind of helpful for these kinds of things. And so like it's so fast. The whole process is so wonderful and fascinating. I will of course beg you to come back at some point to talk more about the rest of the season, because this was amazing. Thank you so much.
Of course, yeah, I'm always happy to talk about it, and it's fun for me when people are actually interested in what happens behind the scenes. So, thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate it as
great. And I don't know how to stop interviews, so I'm just going to hit stop recording.
well. Perfect.